Hi everyone, I am Elias Sarantopoulos with another training video. This time around, I'll show you how to create fun, easy and creative shapes using the Contour tool inside Affinity Canva. But there is more. We're also going to explore a few other techniques and integrate some vector shapes to help you build the final design that really pops. So let's dive into it and get creative. Before starting creating the main shape in this A4 document, a couple of things to set up. So under the View menu, Snapping Options panel, I'll enable Snap to Grids and also enable Snap to Object Geometry for path alignment and snapping to visible curves and paths. In addition, under the View menu, Grid and Axis, I'll enable Show Grid. And on my end, because I would like to see the grid lines more visible, I'm just going to slide this all the way to the right side and then click to close. So for the shapes and from the toolbar, I'll begin this by grabbing the Tier tool. And then let me go ahead and zoom in a bit, click and drag to create this tier shape. All right, so first things first, no need to have any fill color, so I would disable that. And for the stroke, I'll set this one to 1 point. I'll go ahead and rotate this by pressing the Shift key on the keyboard and rotate this to 180 degrees. I would like to have a duplicate of this, so with the Move tool, I'll mark select that, and then use the keyboard shortcut, Alt-Shift, Option-Shift to create duplicates. I'll zoom in a bit to make sure that this sits perfectly aligned to the grid, and rotate back to 0 degrees, and I can do this actually inside the Transform panel. Under the rotation, I'll set this back to 0 degrees. Great. Now we need another duplicate out of these two tier shapes. So with the Selection tool, I'll select this too, and we can use a keyboard shortcut to create a duplicate out of the selection, like so. And looking inside the Layers panel, I've got 4 tier shapes. So inside the Transformation, I'll rotate this to 90 degrees. All right, so we've got those 4 shapes. We're going to select that with the Move tool. And now we're going to use the very versatile Contour tool inside Affinity Canva that lets us offset the stroke of a curve by increasing or decreasing the radius amount. And we can do this by shifting the outline of a shape either inwards or outwards. So I'll grab that, and on my end, I will shift the outline outwards, creating a new contour path. And I'm going to do this till all of these shapes intersect. I'll grab the Move tool, and right now I just have a stroke, but I would like to have just a fill color. And I can do this using the keyboard shortcut to swap between stroke and fill. Now looking inside the Layers panel, I can see that we have 4 tier shapes, but we need only 1. So under the Vector menu, Geometry, I'll use the Add function. And now we've got 1 curve. So back on the Contour tool, this time around, I will click and drag inwards. And I'm going to set this to, let's say, minus 30 points. I can see the values right here for the radius of the contour. So I like that. And right click and duplicate that. So for the first one, temporarily, I'm just going to use a color of my choice just for the fill color, not the stroke. I will disable the stroke and lock this layer so I don't accidentally move it, and then work on the one at the bottom. Still with the Contour tool, still with the live effects, I will click and drag outwards because I want to have like a stroke. So I'm going to set that 2 minus 20 points for the radius of the contour. All right, that looks great. Now I would like to have from this shape, and out of the vector menu, I convert that to curves. Great, we've got the curves. I'm just going to swap, instead of a fill, I want to have a stroke color. And I'll set the stroke to 3 points. The reason I created an additional contour path is to spice things up, and instead of having a continuous curve path, I'll get rid of some of the nodes and be left with few. Now look at the layers panel, and just to organize my work, I'll double click on this layer and rename this to fill, and this one to stroke. In addition, no need to have the grid visible, so I use the keyboard shortcut to toggle off its visibility. I'll zoom quite a bit here, and from the toolbar I grab the node tool and then marquee select this node, and from the control bar right here I click to break the curve. Still using the node tool, marquee select those 3 nodes and then press the delete key on the keyboard to remove those 3 nodes. I'll continue, marquee select this node with the node tool, right click to break the curve, and then marquee select those 3 nodes and remove them. I'll continue with that, marquee select this node, right click to break the curve, and then marquee select and remove those nodes. We've got one more to go, marquee select that node, break the curve, and then marquee select and remove those. So looking at the layers panel, we've got all these strokes. Then I'll switch to the move tool, and now I'm going to change the arrowhead style inside the stroke panel for the starts and end stops. So for the start, I'll click on the drop-down menu and then choose the circle, and I'll do the same for the end. Change the arrowhead to circle as well. And so far, this looks great. Definitely a spice to our design. Moving forward with our design, inside the layers panel, I'll target the fill color. Make sure that the fill option is up front, and then change the fill color to black. I'll right click to duplicate this layer, and then double click and rename this to stroke. That will be another stroke path. And talking about the stroke, that means we're going to swap between fill and stroke using the keyboard shortcuts. I'll target the stroke and change the stroke color to white. And once again, I'll grab the contour tool, and then nice and slow, I will click and drag this inward to create a gap between those 2 shapes and release that. I'll select the move tool, and from the stroke panel, I'll set the stroke width to 2 points. I'll change the style from solid line to a dashed line and set the dash to 2 and the gap also to 2. These are my settings. And I'm also going to lock this there so don't accidentally move it. All right, that looks good. Let's continue this. I grab the tier tool once again. Make sure that for the stroke I have a solid line. For the start arrowhead, set to none. The end also to none. And then click and drag to create, by pressing the shift key, a tier shape. Rotate that, pressing the shift key to control the angle. Make sure this is centered. Maybe I can press the shift key and then just scale this up just a tad. Center it again. And for the fill color, let's say I'm going to use this color of my choice. And then I'll go ahead and duplicate this using the keyboard shortcuts, Alt Shift Option Shift. Rotate that, pressing the shift key to control the angle. And make sure this also sits perfectly fine in alignment with this one too. And change its fill color to, let's say, this color of my choice. Shift select those two tier shapes and then use the keyboard shortcut to create a duplicate out of this selection. And then right here, I can just rotate those by pressing the Shift key on the keyboard to constrain the angle. Target this shape, change its color to perhaps this fill color, and this one to this color of my choice. All right, let's continue this. Let's also color these guys here having the same color as these tier shapes, but only for the stroke. This one too, for the stroke. This one for the stroke. And this one as well. All right, so let's continue that even further. I'm going to zoom in a bit here, grab the pen tool, and then right here, click, and then shift click to create just a straight segment. So looking inside the stroke panel, once again, I'll change the style for the arrowheads. So for the start, I'll set this one to circle solid and the end to just triangle. I'll change the stroke color to black, and let's look at the stroke size. 2 seems to be okay, 2 points. Now, let me go ahead and zoom in a bit here and just bring this down right there. Now, in the event that you want actually to extend the length of this straight line, you can grab the node tool and then just click on this node and then use the up arrow key on the keyboard to extend that to your liking. So I like that. I'll keep that. With the move tool, I select this and use the keyboard shortcut Alt Shift Option Shift to create a duplicate. Rotate that, pressing the Shift key. Bring this into place. Release that. And then marquee select this one. Pressing the Shift key. Marquee select that one too. So both of these are selected. I can see this inside the layers panel. And use the keyboard shortcut to create a duplicate out of the selection. We can see that inside the layers panel. Rotate this by pressing the Shift key, like so. All right. So this is what we have so far. And let's continue this for one more step. The last step of this training video is to add vector icons around this contoured shape, especially SVG icons. I've got a couple of them here. And by the way, SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. So with the Move tool, I'll marquee select all of these paths here. Under the Edit menu, I'll copy that, head back to my document, Edit menu, and paste. And looking inside my layers panel, this comes in as a bunch of curves. So under the Vector menu, Geometry, once again, I'm going to use the Add function. And now we've got just one shape. All right. Now, because I would like to have a library of symbols for this particular document, I'll bring up the Symbols panel. So under the Window menu, Vector and Symbols. With this vector shape selected, all I have to do is click on this tab here to create a new symbol from the current object. Here it is. I can right-click to rename this to Idea, press Enter Return. Now I can just remove that. And I've got one more here. Marquee select that, copy this, and paste. And double checking on the layers panel, this comes as one curve, which is great. Once again, I'm going to click to create another symbol and right-click to rename this to category, and then press enter return. No need to have this on the canvas anymore. We've got the two symbols. So to place those inside, all I have to do is just click and drag them, and do the same for the category icon. Thing is, these are quite large icons, so inside the transform panel, just make sure that you lock the aspect ratio, and I'll set this one, the width, to, let's say, 45 points, and perhaps bring this up just a tad, and do the same for this one. First, rotate it, pressing the Shift key to control the angle, and set the width also to 45 points, and then bring this in quite close. Let's say something along those lines. All right, so the process continues the same for the last two SVG icons in order to complete this creative design idea.